The Catholic Morning Show.
When you have the opportunity to encounter a priest in your life, especially at those moments where they are that conduit of hope, the conduit of grace, when they're granting you sacraments, when you're there in need and they come to respond, you want a priest that has been formed in a humane way, who can be there in your distress and be the sort of priest that for then on, people talk about how they were there and the presence of Jesus Christ for you. We want our seminarians to be well intellectually formed, that's true, but we want them to have that human touch. And so one of the things we do as a Catholic Church is make sure that our seminarians have opportunities to learn that human touch in a concrete way when they go out into the field. So today on the show, we have seminarian here in the Diocese of Des Moines, Matthew Johll, talking about his summer hospital chaplaincy. Matthew, thank you for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Thank you for having me, Bo. How are you today?
Wonderful. And, one of the things that's interesting is that, people go to seminaries all over the place before they come back to the diocese. You are out at St. Joseph's Seminary in Yonkers, New York, which not only is slightly bigger city compared to Des Moines, speaking of the prayer intentions of the Pope, but it also gave you a unique opportunity to have a summer hospital chaplaincy. If you could share some of that with us.
Yes. So at St. Joseph's, commonly called Dunwoodie because of the neighborhood, they have it's not really a partnership, but the Dominican friars out there offer once every summer, like 1 or 2 spots to the Dunwoodie seminarians. And so this year, just because of the way things worked out with guys having other schedules, I was the one guy who got the spot. And essentially what that looks like is it's not, if our listeners have heard of CPE programs, which is Clinical Pastoral Education, it's not exactly the same because it has a different intent. So the CPE program is kind of preparing you, often 4 units, to be a hospital chaplain full-time. But this intent was more, you get a summer experience talking to patients. We also had conferences with the Dominican friars on initially pastoral care, and then also kind of going into bioethics and beginning and end of life issues.
When it comes to your formation as a priest, obviously a lot of intellectual formation goes on, and rightly so. What do you think it shows, though, the commitment of the Church at the human level, that opportunities like this exist for seminarians like you?
I think it's very important, and every seminarian should do it, or anyone preparing to be a priest, because it just teaches you a lot of listening skills. Obviously, you're going in and you're not just playing 20 questions game or something with a patient, but you're asking questions, trying to get them to open up and listening to see what they need from a spiritual perspective. And yeah, like you said, Bo, the seminary can tend to focus a lot on the intellectual formation and studies, which is good because you have to be prepared to answer a lot of the questions in the world out there. But having a specific summer focus on being with people and in the trenches per se is very important. When you get some of that during the school year as well, especially my seminary does it every Wednesday. We'll go out and have our pastoral work, which varies from year to year. But yeah, I was very grateful for the opportunity this summer.
We want priests that are intellectually well-formed, but we want humane priests as well. And one of the issues we're talking about is that human formation, especially when you get chances like the summer hospital chaplaincy that Matthew Johll, a Diocese of Des Moines seminarian, had the opportunity to have. That's who we're talking to today. Matthew, for maybe people who don't know what seminary formation in general looks like, you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty, but what is the sort of normal way that seminary looks like a college in a way, but then also folded into it are opportunities like these pastoral ones?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the normal way, the similarities a seminary would have to a college is we have classes with teachers, professors, often priests, but some lay as well. And you start with philosophy and move to theology, which is, moving from reason and keeping that to study God. But then they also really focus in the daily orarium, the daily schedule. We have morning and evening prayer, Mass as a community, and forming us spiritually. We have opportunities for spiritual direction. And then they also have pastoral opportunities at St. Joseph Dunwoodie. We have our first year, they try to get us to do some work with the poor. The second year is more catechetical, you're teaching religious ed or something. And then the third year is some sort of chaplaincy, and fourth year you're a deacon, so your weekend assignment is like at a parish preaching. But the first 3 years are mostly, they're trying to get other experiences that you might not have to prepare you for the priesthood.
So when you get a chance to do something like the summer residency, the hospital chaplaincy like you did, and this is up on the diocese website of Des Moines if people want to get a chance to look, it's on the news. It's where maybe the intellectual and the pastoral get to meet. In the article that is up on the website, you talk about the problem of pain and suffering. And on one hand, you say you get to this point about there's an intellectual way to reflect on it, but there's a way in which being there with people as they're dealing with it adds a perspective that can only be sort of realized in the concrete. Can you speak to that reality, that coming together of the intellectual and the pastoral that you've got to experience this summer?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. It's the intersection of the intellectual and the pastoral. For me, it was oftentimes you don't just, the people you encounter, they didn't normally complain about their situation. And so most of the time I'm kind of the student learning from them in a way, if you want to look at it from that perspective. But you do kind of, you might not have this understanding and be able to verbalize it. But when you're there with the patient, you have an understanding that they need Christ and they need another person to witness to Christ in front of them. And whether that's in hope or words of advice, which I don't know if I had too many good ones, but I tried. But just being there as a presence to them. And I think, online I talked about this a little bit with especially the witness of Mary and John at the foot of the cross. We can be there at the foot of the cross in a way.
That's it. All of us, when we are going through our lives as Catholics, from the beginning to the end, what we're looking for is the presence of God. And of course, as Catholics, we believe that presence is mediated to us in all sorts of ways, but one of them, obviously, is the ministry of the priesthood. We're speaking with Matthew Johll, who's a diocesan seminary for Des Moines, about his summer hospital chaplaincy. He wrote about it up at dmdiocese.org on their news. But Matthew, that's one of the interesting things. You bring up the word presence, and you even noted that talking about ministries of presence can be a little cliche at this point. What does it mean to be present and it not be cliche, right? How do we push through the cliche and get to the reality of presence?
It's a good question, and one I think I'm still learning to figure out. But this summer, I think my experience was they don't want somebody coming in with just kind of, I guess, fake questions. They want somebody who's authentic and who actually cares about them. So actually taking the time to listen, and sometimes that means sitting there in silence and seeing if they have anything on their mind or heart that they want to share. But just being yourself, and for each person, that's going to look very different. But to be authentic is what I think really makes a true presence.
Well, and then conversely, we out here listening to you, we who want our seminarians to be well-formed, how can we be present for seminarians? I mean, I know that we all can't drive out to Yonkers and hang out with you, as much fun as that might be. And many of us, of course, don't see seminarians all that regularly. What does it mean to be present maybe in prayer or some other way for our seminarians as they go through their formation?
Yeah, the biggest way, like you said, is definitely prayer. We appreciate the prayers every day. And I think the biggest thing to focus on in that prayer is remembering that the goal, why do we even have seminarians and priests, is the sacraments and this encounter with Christ. And we're trying to direct it back because we're being trained to be in the service of the people of God. And so you can participate in that by praying for us and remembering the goal of we're all in this together. So at your own parishes, you can participate by encouraging your family members or anyone to think about religious vocations, as well as praying for them. And remember that these, like us seminarians, are not people who just spring up out of nowhere, but they come from families in the parish, and it's an organic thing.
So, folks, if you want to have that wellspring of presence in your life through the sacramental ministry of the priesthood, as we've been discussing with Matthew Johll here, it is part of what we do as a community, and not just the individual men that do it, but the people who do, like Matthew Johll, who is a diocesan seminarian here for Des Moines, getting to do things like summer hospital chaplaincies to learn that humane element. Matthew, before we let you go, I guess that might be one last question to ask you is, if there's someone out there listening today who's thinking about the priesthood and maybe trying, seminarian formation, what do you have to commend not only the intellectual formation, but precisely opportunities like this summer hospital chaplaincy to people who are thinking about seminarian formation?
I think if you are someone out there thinking about seminary formation, just giving it a go and talking to people about it is the first place to begin, because it is at the end of the day something very incarnational, and you do whatever studies you have to go through or you enjoy going through, that is leading towards an incarnational experience where we're going out into the world and becoming present in the flesh, just as Christ came down from the Father, and we're all looking forward to the day where we go back to the Father in heaven. So for vocational discernment, I think that looks like talking to people in the parish or your vocation director, which for us is Father Ross, and now we have a whole team. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Oh, absolutely. And we want to say thank you, of course, for your taking the opportunity, the time to prayerfully go through seminary, but also to have wonderful opportunities like the summer hospital chaplaincy. So when does that wrap up, and when do you get back to the grind of studies as normal?
Well, actually, it just wrapped up last week. And this week we have our all-Iowa Seminarian Convocation. So all 4 dioceses get together, and each diocese takes a turn hosting. This year it's in Fort Dodge. I'm not exactly sure the theme because they haven't told us. But it usually looks like workshops and conferences, and also fraternity getting together with everybody, which it's always a really fun time. So we have that, and then I start studies at the end of August. We have our return to the seminary.
Well, it's good to know that here in August, then, we have an opportunity to pray for all of the Iowan seminarians meeting together. And one of them joined us today, Matthew Johll, who is a seminarian for the Diocese of Des Moines. And he had a wonderful chance to talk about the summer hospital chaplaincy and what that does to the humane formation in seminary. Matthew, thank you for coming on the Catholic Morning Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Bo.
Listen to the Catholic Morning Show weekdays at 7 a.m. Central on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network, iowacatholicradio.com, or the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
What legacy would you like to leave? As part of the Legacy Society, your gift supports the future of the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. By participating in the planned giving process, you can be assured that when you leave this earth, your charitable gift will continue to support this apostolate and its mission of connecting people to Christ. If you're interested in including Iowa Catholic Radio as part of your charitable gift planning, call me, Belle Marasco, at 515-223-1150. Thank you for your prayerful support.